This is the story of Obinna, a billionaire broken by regret, and Nneoma, the wife he lost, whose secret would one day reunite them in the most shocking way. To every man and woman watching, remember this: pride is a heavy burden to carry, but regret is an even heavier one to lay down. Never let a moment of misunderstanding cost your lifetime of love. And always listen closely when a child sings, for they often hold the keys to our deepest truths. Welcome to Echoes from the Baobab tree, where the timeless spirit of Africa comes alive through the power of storytelling, tales of love, betrayal, and redemption that echo through generations. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, kindly do so now, and don't forget to like, share, and join our growing family of story lovers. Now, let's begin their story. Obinna Okoro, one of the richest men in all of Lagos, was kneeling on the dusty floor of a small, cramped apartment. Tears flowed down his face like a river. He did not wipe them away. He just held the hand of the woman lying on the simple bed, a woman he had not seen for 7 long years. Her name was Nneoma, and she was the love of his life, the wife he thought was lost forever. Suddenly, a small, pure voice filled the room from the doorway. It was a little girl, singing a song that made Obinna's heart stop inside his chest. "There goes my heart beating," she sang softly, "'cause you are the reason I'm losing my sleep. Please come back now." It was the song. Their song. The very one he wrote for Nneoma under the mango tree in his village, the one only the two of them knew. He stared at the little girl, Sammy, the one who had led him here. Her eyes were closed as she sang to her sick mother. Obinna's whole body began to shake. He looked from the woman on the bed to the little girl singing, and a shocking, impossible truth exploded in his mind. The little girl's smile, her eyes, the song she should never have known. He finally understood. The truth about who she was hit him with the force of a thunderclap. "My daughter," he whispered, the words cracking in his throat. "She is my daughter." But just as he reached a trembling hand towards Sammy, Nneoma's eyes fluttered open. She saw Obinna kneeling there, saw the look of shock on his face, and her own eyes filled with panic and fear. She tried to sit up, a weak, desperate cry escaping her lips. "Obinna, no. Please, you have to go," she begged, her voice thin and scared. "You can't be here. They will find you." Who were they? And why was Nneoma, after all this time, so terrified to see him? The mystery had only just begun. To understand how a billionaire like Obinna Okoro ended up on his knees in a poor woman's apartment, we have to go back to the beginning, just a few hours earlier, on a hot Tuesday afternoon in Lagos. Obinna sat in the back of his sleek, black SUV, his phone pressed to his ear. His driver was stuck in the infamous Lagos traffic on the 3rd Mainland Bridge. The cars were not moving at all. "I don't care," turned. Obinna said into the phone, his voice tight with frustration. "Cancel the meeting. I need to think. I'm getting out here." His assistant, turned, was shocked. "Sir, out where?" "On the bridge. It's not safe. I need air," turned. Obinna snapped. He ended the call and tapped his driver's shoulder. "Michael, I'm taking the BRT bus the rest of the way." Michael, the driver, was too surprised to argue. Obinna stepped out of the cool, air-conditioned car and into the hot, noisy chaos of the bridge. He walked to the nearest BRT bus stop, blending in with the crowd of people trying to get home. He just needed to be somewhere nobody knew his name, somewhere he could be invisible for a while. His mind was heavy with thoughts of Nneoma. 7 years ago, she had vanished without a trace, and he had spent a fortune trying to find her, with no luck. The bus arrived, and Obinna found a seat, staring out the window at the sprawling city. He was lost in his sad thoughts when a small voice pulled him back. "Good afternoon, Uncle. Can I sit here?" Obinna looked down. A little girl, no more than 6 years old, stood before him. She was holding 2 heavy-looking nylon bags full of food and a small packet. What struck him most was her smile. It was bright and kind, even though she looked tired. She had a small gap between her two front teeth. Of course, Obinna said, his heart softening. You can sit. Thank you, uncle, she said, carefully placing her bags down. She pulled out a small towel and wiped the sweat from her face. She moved with a maturity that was far beyond her years. Obinna felt a strange tug in his chest. If he and Nneoma had stayed together, their child would be about her age. The little girl noticed the sadness in his eyes. Without a word, she took a deep breath and began to sing. There goes my heart beating, she sang, her voice soft but clear. 'Cause you are the reason. I'm losing my sleep. Please come back now. The moment he heard the first line, Obinna froze. His blood ran cold. It felt like the whole noisy bus had gone completely silent. That song, it was his song. The melody, the words, he had written them for Nneoma. It was their secret song. How could this little girl, a stranger, possibly know it? Tears filled his eyes and spilled down his cheeks before he could stop them. The little girl saw him crying and stopped singing. Uncle, why are you crying? She asked, her head tilted. Did you not like my song? My mommy said when someone is sad, I should sing that song to make the sadness go away. Obinna choked back a sob. No, my dear. I loved your song. It is a very special song. I'm Sammy, she said proudly. I am Obinna, he replied, his voice shaky. Are you here alone, Sammy? Sammy's smile faded a little. My mommy is sick. I went to buy food and medicine at Oingo Market. I know the way. I am a big girl. Obinna's heart broke for her. It was getting late. You bought so many things. Let me help you carry your bags when you get to your stop. Sammy looked at him, her eyes serious. But I don't have money to pay you, uncle. Obinna almost laughed through his tears. You don't have to pay me. Okay, Sammy said, thinking. But I can give you this. She proudly held up a small pack of chin-chin. I promised my friend I would share, but I can give you one. Obinna smiled a real, warm smile for the first time in a long time. It's a deal. When the bus reached her stop in the Surale area, Obinna carried the heavy bags while Sammy skipped ahead, giving him directions. They soon arrived at a small, clean bungalow with a blue gate. This is it, Sammy said. Come inside, Uncle Obinna. Obinna followed her into the simple but tidy living room. He helped her put the groceries on the table. Sammy, he asked gently. Where is your daddy? Is he at work? Sammy shook her head, her face suddenly sad. I don't have a daddy. My mommy and daddy separated a long time ago. So I take care of my mommy now. Her words felt like a punch to Obinna's stomach. He was about to ask another question when a weak voice came from the hallway. Sammy, is that you? My child, where have you been? I was so worried. Sammy turned quickly. Mama. A frail woman was standing in the doorway, holding onto the wall for support. She was pale and looked very, very ill. Mama, you should be in bed. Sammy cried, running to her. Don't worry about me, my love, the woman whispered. But as she took a step forward, her legs gave way. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to the floor. Mama! Sammy screamed, rushing to her mother's side and shaking her desperately. Mama, wake up. Uncle Obinna, please help my mommy. Obinna's eyes widened in alarm. He rushed forward to help the fallen woman. He knelt down, turning her over to check if she was breathing. And in that moment, as the light from the window fell on her face, his whole world stopped. The woman lying on the floor, the one he had searched for across countries for 7 years, was Nneoma. His Nneoma. He gasped, his hand starting to tremble violently. Nneoma, he whispered, his voice shaking with disbelief and fear. "Oh my God, Nneoma." He gently lifted her unconscious body, his mind racing a million miles per hour. He had found her. But she was sick, and she was living in poverty, and she had a daughter who knew their secret song. As he carried her to the bed, a terrifying thought entered his mind. What if he was already too late? What if, after all these years of searching, he had found her only to lose her forever? Obinna's heart hammered against his ribs like a frantic drum. He carefully laid Nneoma on the small bed, his hands trembling as he felt the burning heat of her skin. She was alive, but a fierce fever was raging through her body. "Uncle Obinna, is my mama going to be okay?" Sammy's small voice was filled with tears as she clung to his trouser leg. Obinna looked down at the little girl's terrified face. He saw Nneoma's eyes and his own chin in her features. The truth was now a living, breathing thing in the room. "My daughter. This is my daughter." He had to be strong for her. "Yes, Sammy," he said, his voice much calmer than he felt. "Your mama is going to be fine. But we need to be very brave and help her, okay? Can you be brave for me?" Sammy nodded quickly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "I am brave." "Good girl," Obinna said. He pulled out his phone. His fingers, usually so steady when signing millionaire deals, fumbled as he dialed. His head of security, Tond, answered on the first ring. "Sir." Tond, listen carefully, Obinna said, his voice low and urgent. "I found her. I found Nneoma. I'm sending you the address now. I need Dr. IB here immediately. Not in 30 minutes. Now. Tell him it's a life or death situation." "Right away, sir." Tond replied, the shock clear in his voice. Within 15 minutes, a black Range Rover pulled up outside the blue gate. Dr. IB, a tall, serious man who was the best private doctor money could hire, hurried inside with his medical bag. He checked Nneoma's vitals while Obinna and Sammy watched, holding hands. "She has a severe infection," Dr. IB announced, preparing an injection. "Her body is fighting very hard. This antibiotic will help, but she needs rest, fluids, and constant care." He gave Nneoma the injection and handed a packet of drugs to Obinna. "Make sure she takes this exactly as instructed." After the doctor left, Obinna looked at Sammy. "Have you eaten anything today, little one?" Sammy shook her head. "I was waiting for Mama to wake up." A fresh wave of anger and guilt washed over Obinna. His daughter was going hungry while he lived in a mansion. He went into the small kitchen. It was clean but had very little food. He found some rice and made a simple pot of porridge. He served a bowl to Sammy, blowing on it carefully so she wouldn't burn her tongue. As she ate, Obinna watched her. Every little gesture, the way she parted her lips to blow on the spoon herself, the shape of her eyes when she smiled, it was like looking at a tiny, living piece of his and Nneoma's past. The love he felt for this child was so sudden and so powerful it stole his breath away. Later, he found Sammy standing on a small stool, trying to wash the dishes. His heart swelled with a painful pride. Nneoma had raised a strong, good girl. "Uncle Obinna," Sammy said later, as dusk fell. "Aren't you going to your house?" Obinna shook his head. "No, Sammy. I'm staying right here with you and your mama. I'm not leaving you alone." He slept fitfully that night on the small living room couch, his legs hanging over the armrest. Every sound from Nneoma's room made him jump. He was a billionaire who owned a palace, but in that moment, he would have given it all up to be allowed to stay on that uncomfortable couch forever. The next morning, Nneoma's fever broke. She woke up, weak and confused. Sammy was by her side in an instant. "Mama. You're awake. Your fever is gone." Nneoma hugged her daughter tightly. "Thank you, my precious child. Thank you for taking care of me." She looked around the room, her eyes still hazy. Sammy, who was that man you said helped us? Oh, that's Uncle Obinna, Sammy said excitedly. He is very kind. He cooked porridge and called the doctor. You would have liked him. A strange feeling, a mix of dread and hope, stirred in Nneoma's chest. Obinna, she whispered. It couldn't be. Later that day, after Nneoma had regained a little strength, she heard a knock at the gate. Sammy ran to open it. Uncle Obinna, she squealed. Nneoma, who was in the backyard washing clothes, heard the name clearly this time. Her blood ran cold. She dropped the shirt she was holding and walked slowly to the front of the house. And then she froze. There, standing in her small living room, holding a giant teddy bear for Sammy, was Obinna. Her Obinna. The man whose memory had haunted her for 7 years. Her hand flew to her mouth. Obinna, she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. Obinna's eyes were filled with a storm of emotions, relief, love, guilt, and pain. Hello, Nneoma. Nneoma's shock quickly hardened into a cold, protective anger. Her past had found her, and it threatened the fragile life she had built for her daughter. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice sharp and cold. Sammy, sensing the sudden tension, looked back and forth between them, confused. Please, Obinna said softly. Can we talk? Alone. Nneoma took a deep breath. Sammy, go to your room. Now. When Sammy was gone, Nneoma turned to Obinna, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Why are you here, Obinna? After all these years. I spent 7 years looking for you, Nneoma, he said, his voice raw. I never stopped. I want to help. I want to be part of Sammy's life. She deserves a father. Nneoma's heart clenched. He didn't know. Or did he? You have no right, she whispered, her voice trembling with a pain so old and deep it felt fresh. I have every right. Obinna's voice broke. I went and got a test, Nneoma. I knew the moment I saw her. The results confirmed it yesterday. She is my daughter. The room was silent. The secret was out. The wall Nneoma had built around her heart for so long cracked. Tears spilled from her eyes. You were gone, Obinna. You left us. I won't stop you from seeing her. Just give me time to tell her myself. Please. Obinna nodded, the fight going out of him. I've already missed 6 years, he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. Don't make me miss anymore. He left his calling card on the table and walked out, leaving Nneoma alone in the quiet room. She sank into a chair, the card clutched in her hand, and sobbed. The past was no longer the past. It was here, in her present, and it had the power to shatter everything. A week later, Nneoma finally agreed to let Obinna take Sammy out for the day. As she watched her daughter get into Obinna's expensive car, her smile brighter than she had ever seen it, a deep sadness filled her. She was happy for Sammy, but she was also terrified. Obinna's world was full of dangers she had worked hard to escape. That evening, she waited for them to return. 5 o'clock came and went. Then 5:30. A cold knot of fear tightened in her stomach. She stood by the gate, her eyes scanning the darkening street. Where were they? Had her worst fears come true? Had the past she was running from finally caught up and taken her daughter away from her? Just as panic was about to completely consume her, her phone rang. It was Obinna. Her hand shook as she answered. Obinna. Where are you? Where is my daughter? There was a pause on the other end, a silence that felt like death. When Obinna finally spoke, his voice was hollow, shattered. Nneoma, he said, his voice breaking. There's been an accident. The world stopped spinning. The sound of the evening insects, the distant noise of generators, everything just vanished for Nneoma. All she could hear was the frantic beating of her own heart and Obinna's broken voice on the phone. An accident, she repeated, the words feeling like sand in her mouth. Her legs felt weak, like they could no longer hold her. Obinna, where is my daughter? Is Sammy, is she? She's alive, Obinna said quickly, hearing the terror in her voice. She's alive, Nneoma. But she was hurt. We are at Lagoon Hospital in Ikeja. Please, just come. Nneoma didn't wait for another word. She dropped the phone, not even bothering to lock her house, and ran into the street. She flagged down an Okada, the motorcycle taxi, her movements frantic and jerky. Lagoon Hospital. Now. Please, drive fast, she begged the rider, her voice shrill with panic. The ride was a blur of swerving through traffic and blaring horns. All Nneoma could see was Sammy's face. Her bright smile, her gap-toothed grin. She couldn't lose her. She couldn't. Sammy was her entire world. When the Okada screeched to a halt in front of the tall, imposing hospital building, Nneoma thrust a wad of naira notes at the driver and ran towards the glowing entrance. But as the automatic doors slid open, she froze. The smell of antiseptic filled her nose, a smell that brought back a flood of terrible, dark memories. The last time she was in a hospital, she was identifying the bodies of her parents after their car crash. Her breath hitched, and her chest felt tight. She couldn't make her legs move forward. Just as the walls felt like they were closing in, a strong hand gripped her arm. Nneoma. It was Obinna. His expensive suit jacket was missing, his tie was loose, and there was a dark, worried look in his eyes. He saw the pure terror on her face and without a word, he pulled her into a tight hug. I know you're scared, he whispered into her hair. But you don't have to face this alone. I'm here. How is she? Nneoma asked, her voice muffled against his chest. She's going to be okay, Obinna said, leading her gently through the doors. She let him guide her, his presence the only thing keeping her from crumbling to the floor. It's a concussion and a broken arm. The doctor said she was very lucky. They entered a private room. Seeing Sammy lying in the white hospital bed, her small arm in a cast, a bandage on her forehead, was both a relief and a new kind of pain. She was sleeping, her breathing even but her face pale. Nneoma rushed to the bedside, gently taking Sammy's good hand in hers. She bent down and kissed her forehead, fresh tears flowing. My baby, she whispered. My strong, strong baby. Obinna stood by the door, his own eyes wet. I'm so sorry, Nneoma. It happened so fast. A truck ran a red light. It hit my side of the car. I tried to shield her. His voice trailed off, thick with guilt. For the first time, Nneoma didn't feel anger towards him. She saw the genuine agony on his face. He could have died protecting their daughter. She looked from his guilty face to Sammy's sleeping one. The two most important people in her life, both hurt, both in this hospital because of her secrets. Later that night, after the doctors confirmed Sammy was stable and would make a full recovery, Nneoma sat by her bedside while Obinna paced the room. This can't happen again, Obinna, Nneoma said quietly, her eyes never leaving Sammy's face. I know. I'll get a better driver. A safer car. No, Nneoma interrupted, finally looking at him. That's not what I mean. She took a deep, shaky breath. It was time for the truth. The accident, it might not have been an accident. Obinna stopped pacing. What are you talking about? The police report said the truck driver was drunk. Maybe he was, Nneoma said, her voice dropping to a fearful whisper. Or maybe someone paid him to be. The air in the room grew cold. Obinna walked closer, his expression grim. Nneoma, what is going on? Who would do that? Who are you afraid of? Nneoma clutched Sammy's hand tighter, as if to protect her from the very words she was about to say. After I left you, I didn't just disappear. I was hiding. From your family, Obinna. Obinna stared at her, completely confused. My family. My mother. My uncles. Why? Because they never wanted you to marry me. Nneoma's tears started again, but these were tears of long-held fear. They wanted you to marry that girl from the wealthy family, Adana. They said I was a poor village girl who was only after your money. When I got pregnant, they were furious. They said the child would ruin their plans for you. Obinna felt a cold dread creeping up his spine. He remembered the pressure from his mother, but he never thought. What did they do, Nneoma? He asked, his voice dangerously low. The day I left, she sobbed, your mother came to see me. She said if I didn't leave you and disappear forever, something terrible would happen to me and our unborn child. She said I would have an unfortunate accident, just like my parents did. The revelation hit Obinna like a physical blow. He stumbled back, his hand grabbing the wall for support. He always thought his parents' car crash was just that, a tragic accident. To hear that his own mother might have been involved was unthinkable. And now, she had threatened his wife and child. The money I sent you for years, he whispered, horrified. The letters that were returned, she must have intercepted them all. Nneoma nodded, exhausted from carrying the burden for so long. I was so scared, Obinna. I changed my name. I moved to this small place. I lived in fear every single day that they would find us. And now you've come back into our lives, you've put a spotlight on us. They must have found out. This accident, it was a warning. Obinna's shock began to melt away, replaced by a burning, cold fury. He looked at his daughter in the hospital bed, her small body broken because of the greed and cruelty of his own family. He looked at Nneoma, the love of his life, who had lived in poverty and fear for 7 years to protect their child. He walked over to the bed and placed a hand on Sammy's head and the other on Nneoma's shoulder. His voice was quiet, but it was filled with a steel-like determination they had never heard before. This ends now, he said. No one will ever hurt you again. No one. I will burn my entire family empire to the ground before I let them touch a single hair on your heads. He pulled out his phone, his eyes never leaving his family. He dialed a number. His head of security, Turned, answered. Turned, Obinna said, his voice cold and clear as ice. I have a new job for you. I want you to investigate my mother, my uncles, and the Okoro family trust. I want to know everything. Every secret, every dirty deal, every single thing they have ever tried to hide. He ended the call and looked at Nneoma, his expression a mix of love and fierce resolve. The war, he declared, has just begun. The private hospital room was silent, but a storm was raging inside Obinna. He looked at his daughter's small, sleeping face, pale against the white pillow, her arm in a cast. He looked at Nneoma, who had aged years in the last hour, her body trembling with the weight of her terrible secret. His own mother. His own flesh and blood had done this. The knowledge was a poison spreading through his veins, turning his grief into a cold, hard rage. They will never touch you again, Obinna repeated, his voice a low, dangerous promise. I swear it on my life. He didn't wait for a response. He strode out of the room and into the hallway, pulling out his phone. His first call wasn't to his lawyer or another business associate. It was to his most trusted head of security, Turned. Turned, Obinna's voice was clipped, all emotions stripped away, leaving only cold command. Drop everything. I have a new priority. I want 4 of your most discreet, most loyal men on this hospital floor right now. No one gets near my daughter's room. No one. Not a doctor I haven't personally approved, not a nurse, not even my own shadow if you haven't cleared it first. Do you understand? Understood, sir, Turned replied, hearing the iron in his boss's voice. Good, Obinna said. The second thing. I want you to open an investigation. Start with my mother, Grace Okoro. Then move to my uncles, Chibik and Emeka. I want to know everything. Their finances, their secret meetings, their business deals for the last 10 years. I want to know if they so much as jaywalked. Find me something, turned. Find me a weapon I can use. Ending the call, Obinna felt a grim sense of purpose. He was no longer just a heartbroken man, he was a general preparing for war. He returned to the room to find Nneoma gently stroking Sammy's hair. I've posted guards outside, he told her softly. You are both safe here. Nneoma looked up, her eyes red raw. For how long, Obinna? You can't guard us forever. She will always find a way. Your mother, she is a powerful woman. Then I will become more powerful, Obinna stated, as if it were a simple fact. I built the Okoro Empire. I can break it, piece by piece, if that's what it takes to protect what's mine. Just then, Sammy stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She was confused and in pain, but her first word was, Mama. I'm here, my love, Nneoma said, leaning forward, her voice thick with tears of relief. Sammy's eyes then found Obinna. Daddy. The word, so simple and trusting, shattered the last of Obinna's composure. He knelt beside the bed, taking her small, good hand in his. I am here, my princess. Daddy is here, and I am never leaving you again. Over the next 2 days, the hospital became a fortress. Obinna's security team screened every staff member. He moved his command center to the waiting room, his laptop open, conducting his business while keeping a vigilant watch. He was a man possessed. Nneoma watched him, seeing the boy she fell in love with transformed into a formidable protector. The wall of anger she had built around her heart began to crumble, brick by brick. On the third day, Tund arrived with a file. His expression was grim. Sir, he said, leading Obinna to a private corner. We found something. It's not about the accident, we are still tracing the truck driver, but it's about the past. About Nneoma's parents. Obinna's blood ran cold. What about them? Their car accident 7 years ago, Tund said, lowering his voice. The official report said brake failure. But a mechanic who worked on the car before the accident has come forward. He says he was paid a large sum of money by a man named Emeka to tamper with the brakes. Emeka. His uncle. Obinna's vision swam with red-hot fury. It wasn't just a threat. They had already killed. They had murdered Nneoma's parents to isolate her, to make her easier to scare away. And he, Obinna, had been too blind, too busy with his empire, to see the monsters he called family. He walked back into the hospital room, the file feeling like a lead weight in his hand. Nneoma was helping Sammy sip water. Nneoma, Obinna said, his voice hoarse. We need to talk. Alone. She saw the look on his face and nodded, following him into the empty hallway. He didn't know how to say it gently. So, he just said it. Your parents' accident, it wasn't an accident. He handed her the file. My uncle Emeka paid a mechanic to sabotage their car. Nneoma's face went completely white. She gripped the wall for support, her body shaking with violent tremors. She didn't scream. The pain was too deep for sound. It was a silent, soul-crushing agony. All these years, she had blamed fate, bad luck. But it was murder. Cold, calculated murder. She slid down the wall onto the cold floor, the file scattering around her. Obinna knelt and held her as she finally broke, her silent tears turning into ragged, guttural sobs of a pain that was 7 years too late. I will make them pay, Nneoma, Obinna whispered into her hair, his own tears mixing with hers. I will destroy them for what they did to you. For what they did to us. It was in that moment of shared, bottomless grief that something shifted between them. The last of the past poison was drained. There was only the present, and the fierce, united need for justice. Later that evening, as Sammy slept peacefully, her breathing steadier, Obinna's phone buzzed. It was his mother, Grace Okoro. The screen flashed with her name like a warning. He showed the phone to Nneoma. Her eyes widened in fear. "Answer it," she whispered, a new strength in her voice. "But put it on speaker." Obinna did as she said. "Mother." "Obinna, my son." Grace's voice was smooth as honey, but with a sharp edge underneath. "I heard about the terrible accident. I've been so worried." "How is the child?" Obinna's jaw tightened. "Her name is Samantha. Your granddaughter. And she is recovering, by the grace of God." There was a slight pause on the other end. "Don't be dramatic, Obinna. That woman is filling your head with nonsense. I want you to come home. We need to discuss the future of the company. There are unsettling rumors." Obinna looked at Nneoma, whose face was set in a mask of determination. He knew what he had to do. "There's nothing to discuss, Mother," he said, his voice cold and final. "I know everything. About the threats to Nneoma. About the money you stole. And I know about Emeka and the car." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When Grace Okoro spoke again, all pretense of warmth was gone, replaced by a venomous chill. "You are making a very big mistake, my son. If you choose that street rat and her bastard child over your own family, over the empire your father built, then you are no son of mine. You will regret this." The line went dead. Obinna put the phone down. The final bridge had been burned. There was no going back. He turned to Nneoma. "It's done." Nneoma stood up and walked over to him. She placed a hand on his cheek. "No," she said softly. "It is just beginning. We face it together now." Just then, a nurse hurried into the room, her face anxious. "Mr. Okoro, we have a problem." Obinna's heart jumped. "What is it? Is it Sammy?" No, she is fine," the nurse said quickly. "It's at the main reception. There are men there. Government men. From the Special Fraud Unit. They're asking for you. They say they have a warrant for your arrest." The word arrest hung in the sterile hospital air like a poisonous gas. Obinna stood frozen, his mind reeling. For a single, wild second, he thought his mother's threat had been an empty one. He was wrong. She had moved with the speed and precision of a snake strike. Nneoma's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with a fresh, chilling fear. "Arrest. Obinna, what is this?" Before he could answer, two stern-looking men in plain clothes, flanked by two uniformed police officers, entered the hallway. One of them, a tall man with a grim face, held up a badge and a folded document. "Obinna Okoro," the tall man said, his voice echoing in the quiet corridor. "I am Inspector Lawal with the Special Fraud Unit. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of massive fraud, embezzlement of company funds, and tax evasion." "This is ridiculous." Obinna's voice was a low growl, his fist clenched at his sides. "You are making a terrible mistake. The evidence suggests otherwise, sir," Inspector Lawal replied coolly. "We have documents, signed by you, authorizing the transfer of over 5 billion naira to several shell companies. Companies that are linked directly back to you." Obinna's blood ran cold. The shell companies. He knew about them. They were part of a complex, but legal, international investment structure managed by the family's board, which included his uncles. His signature was on file for dozens of documents. They must have forged his authorization on fraudulent transfers, framing him for the theft. It was a masterstroke. They weren't just trying to scare him away, they were trying to bury him in a prison cell and take everything. "Those signatures are forgeries. This is my mother's doing. My uncle's." Obinna argued, his voice rising. "That is a matter for the courts," the inspector said, unmoved. "Right now, you need to come with us." As one of the uniformed officers stepped forward with handcuffs, a fierce, protective roar erupted from Obinna. "You will not handcuff me in front of my daughter," he thundered, his voice so full of authority that the officer hesitated and looked to the inspector. Just then, a small, weak voice came from the hospital room doorway. "Daddy." Everyone turned. Sammy was standing there, clinging to the doorframe, her small body trembling, her face a mask of confusion and terror. She had seen the police, heard the angry voices. The sight of her, so small and vulnerable, broke something inside Obinna. Inspector Lawal's stern expression softened for a fraction of a second. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod to the officer with the cuffs. "All right. Please come with us quietly, Mr. Okoro." Obinna knelt down, his eyes level with Sammy's. He forced a calm, reassuring smile onto his face, though his heart was shattering. "Princess, don't be scared. Daddy has to go and fix a big misunderstanding. I will be back very, very soon. I promise." Sammy's lip trembled. "But you said you would never leave again." The words were a knife to Obinna's heart. He pulled her into a tight, careful hug, kissing her cheek. "And I meant it. This is just a small delay. I love you, my brave girl." He stood up and looked at Nneoma. Her face was pale, but her eyes held a new fire. She gave him a single, determined nod. It was a silent promise. "I will fight for you." As Obinna was led away, Nneoma's mind raced. She felt the old, familiar fear trying to paralyze her. But this time, it was different. This time, she wasn't a scared girl alone in the world. She was a mother, and a woman fighting for her family. She would not run. She would fight. She waited until Obinna was out of sight, then she snatched her phone and called the one person she knew could help. "Turned," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "They took him. The SFU just arrested Obinna. It's a setup by his family." "I know," Tom's voice was grim. "I just got a tip-off. They moved faster than I anticipated. But I have the evidence, Nneoma. I have the proof of their forgeries and the real money trail. We can fight this." "Good," Nneoma said, a plan forming in her mind. "But we don't just fight in the courts. We fight in the court of public opinion. I am not hiding anymore." With Tom's help, Nneoma gave an exclusive interview to a major news network from the hospital waiting room. She did not wear a veil. She looked directly into the camera, her voice strong, her story heartbreaking. She spoke of her love for Obinna, the threats from his family, the murder of her parents, and now, the fraudulent arrest designed to silence their reunited family. She held up a photo of Sammy, her arm in a cast, asleep in her hospital bed. "The mighty Okoro family is trying to destroy their own son," she declared, all because he chose to love his own child. Is this the kind of power we respect in Nigeria? The story exploded online. The hashtag Justice for Obinna started trending. The public, who loved the dramatic story of a billionaire brought low by love, was firmly on their side. The pressure began to mount. Meanwhile, in his cold, dark cell, Obinna felt a despair deeper than any he had ever known. He had lost everything. His freedom, his company, and worst of all, the trust of his daughter. He sat with his head in his hands, praying for a miracle. The miracle came at dawn. The cell door clanged open. Inspector Lawal stood there, but his expression was completely different. It was almost respectful. "Mr. Okoro, you are free to go. The charges have been dropped." Obinna looked up, stunned. "What? How?" "It seems new evidence has come to light," the inspector said, a slight smile on his face. "Very public evidence. Your wife is a very courageous woman. And it seems your mother and uncles have had a sudden change of heart. They have confessed to their roles in the fraud and the other matters. Obinna walked out of the station into the bright morning sun, squinting. And there, waiting for him on the street, was Nneoma. And beside her, held in Nneoma's arms, was Sammy, waving her little, uncasted arm wildly, a huge, gap-toothed smile on her face. He ran to them, sweeping them both into a crushing embrace, his tears flowing freely. They were his. They were safe. They had won. A week later, in the grand living room of Obinna's Ikoyi mansion, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Obinna, Nneoma, and Sammy sat together on a large sofa. Across from them sat a humbled, broken Grace Okoro and his uncles, Emeka and Chibik. The police were on their way. You tried to take everything from me, Obinna said, his voice quiet but firm. But you only showed me what was truly valuable. He held Nneoma's hand and smiled at Sammy. You will pay for what you did to Nneoma's parents, he continued, looking directly at his uncle Emeka, who flinched. And for the fraud. You will have your day in court. As the police led his family away, Obinna felt no joy, only a quiet peace. The storm was finally over. That evening, under the starry Lagos sky, Obinna stood with Nneoma on the balcony, watching Sammy play safely in the guarded garden below. Nneoma, he said softly, turning to her. You are the strongest person I have ever known. You saved me. You saved our family. He got down on one knee and took her hand. You were always my wife in my heart. But will you do me the honor of marrying me again? In front of God and everyone, so the whole world will know you are mine and I am yours. Nneoma's eyes shone with happy tears. She pulled him to his feet and kissed him. Yes, Obinna. Always yes. They were married a month later in a beautiful, joyful ceremony. And this time, walking down the aisle, proudly holding her mother's hand, was their beautiful daughter, Sammy, the little girl whose song on a subway had finally brought her family home. Let's be honest, my people. Wasn't Nneoma just as bad as Obinna's greedy family? She kept his daughter a secret for 7 years out of pure selfishness. If she really loved him, she would have trusted him to protect them from the beginning. She's not a heroine, she's the reason this whole mess happened. Agree or disagree?